It definitely takes a team to run things here at Pro Organizer Studio. Today, I have on professional organizer Brie Kistler, who also happens to work part time for Pro Organizer Studio as our operations manager. Now, I've got her on the podcast to talk about a little bit about what goes on behind the scenes at Pro Organizer Studio and some tips that you can apply to helping your organizing business run as smoothly as possible.
You're listening to the Pro Organizer Studio podcast with Jen Obermeyer. Thank you for joining in. Jen makes it her mission to broaden the horizons of savvy businesswomen in the organizing industry by instilling confidence and inspiring authenticity. She is a devoted business coach and founder of the Inspired Organizer program. Each week, you'll gain new insight into strategies designed specifically for professional organizers. And now, let's get started.
Welcome back to the Pro Organizer Studio podcast. I'm super glad today to have on what is she? She's a little bit of everything. She's my operations manager. She's my assistant. She is a major part of Pro Organizer Studio with everything that we offer. Her name is Brie Kistler. Hi, Brie.
Hey.
And, it's one of those podcast episodes you kind of have to do at some point where you're, bringing on team members that work with you and introduce them to your community. Brie is someone who works tirelessly, really, behind the scenes to make sure that I don't look like a hot mess, right? Well, that's one of the goals. But I wanted to have Brie on because obviously as a new podcast, I wanted to introduce her. But we also, the two of us together, just finished a really cool business training over the past few months that we thought that you guys would get a kick out of hearing, because it's really something that for organizers who really want to get a handle on their systems and their processes in order to grow their business or even just maintain at a steady state without losing their mind. I think you guys are going to love it. But before we jump into that, I want to tell a short story of how Brie and I met. Brie?
Okay, so I have a 2.5-year-old now, but when she was around 12 months old, I had been staying home with her and I was really getting an itch to work again. And I had been in a administrative sort of, but also HR role at another company. Well, the particular industry I was in was very stressful. And so I knew I loved organizing, but I never really thought it was a thing to start a business. But I had a lot of encouragement from family and friends to look into it. And then I started going to MOPS when she was 12 months old. And in my MOPS group, a professional organizer came to speak to the group about decluttering your house and stuff like that. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I didn't know this was a thing, but wait, I don't need to do this. I've already done it. I need to teach other people how to do it. And it just really got me excited. And so I just started doing some research, and I found Jen on Pinterest and on YouTube, and I could not stop watching her videos. But I didn't want to write to her. I was intimidated because I heard in one of her videos that she lived 30 minutes away from me. So I was just like, I can't talk to this girl. She's my competition or whatever. It made me really intimidated. But after 6 weeks of scouring all of her content, I finally wrote to her and I was like, hey, we have all this stuff in common. I just wanted you to know that I really think you're awesome. And, I'm here 30 minutes away from you. So, yeah.
Well, Brie, let me just give you my recollection of getting your email that day. I remember exactly where I was because I was like, oh my gosh, I need somebody. I was basically like, can I hire you? Essentially right away, because I was like, I need somebody to come organize me. And what I meant by that was not organize my life per se, but really I was at a point in my business where this was at the end of 2017. So I was at a point in my business where I had already been doing, everything. I was wearing all the hats at Pro Organizer Studio. I was the student, the teacher, the coach, the tech support, the social media manager. I had not outsourced anything at that point. So I had really been flying on my own. And I just was kind of like, I've got so many projects coming up. I know because it was coming up at the end of the fall. So I was already thinking about the next year. And I asked Brie, I was like, well, can you just come to my house? Because I need some like admin I just needed like even one day of just help me just organize my admin and all my thoughts. Because again, it was like, me constantly having papers spread out everywhere and Post-it notes of like all my ideas and things I had to do. So Brie went from being scared to talk to me to then me being like, well, are you going to come to my house or not? And it was like 1 week later, which was awesome. And to me, it was the most natural thing in the world. I think she was.
Oh my goodness. I ran into my husband's office jumping up and down. I was like, oh my gosh, like she not only did she write me back, she wants to meet me. Like, what the heck?
I know, that was awesome. No, you came at the right time. So that was wonderful. Fast forward, Brie ended up working with me as a subcontractor to help with various projects with Pro Organizer Studio throughout the rest of 2018. Mm-hmm. And then as of January 1st of this year, 2019, Brie became my very first employee, yes. Which was great. And we knew for a long time that eventually that, I would want her to move into an employee role. But for a while there, it was just sort of like hey, I'm going to need help with this kind of project. And she would essentially kind of charge me for a package of hours, and she was kind of helping me, here and there. So by the time she became my employee this year, we had already had well over a year of working together. Yeah. But, with her moving into an employee role, which by the way, her official title now is operations manager. She's my only employee. So she is my only, other person who truly helps support all of our programming. So she's a support person for the Inspired Organizer community. She handles a lot of support requests from current students or potential students. And she also is my right-hand person when it comes to leading our retreats that we're now offering. Yes. Which she is amazing at. So it's been wonderful to, really, Brie, like see you develop into all of these different roles. But as we started through the beginning of the quarter this year, and we're working together, and it was me learning how to manage an actual employee and not just someone who is like working with me like on a project basis. It was a whole new ballgame. So here's where I want to tell you guys about the business program that Brie and I just went through together. If you guys remember, I have talked on the podcast before about a book called Profit First by Mike Micalowicz. Now, it's a great book. And if you're into finance and you're kind of like that, I almost think it really appeals to people who also like Dave Ramsey for like their personal finances, but it's like Profit First is kind of like Dave Ramsey, but for your business. And Mike wrote a somewhat new book. It hasn't been out a very long time, even as of now, I think just about a year, called Clockwork. And Brie and I both read this book. When did we read that? Probably the end of 2018. Yeah.
Yeah. Late in the fall. Yeah.
And as we were working together at the beginning of this year, this quarter, I said to Brie, like, it's a big priority to me to use that book as sort of a roadmap for how to implement a lot of systems and stuff that we really wanted to kind of formalize and bring to the next level for Pro Organizer Studio. And, that definitely fell under, Brie's role of helping, do project management and helping create systems. And so I thought this was an incredible resource. And so we both were like going to read the book again. And right when that happened, it was just the right place, right time. I saw that they were running their first ever like group coaching 8-week program for Clockwork. So you could enroll in it online and do like a guided walkthrough of clockworking your business. And the catch, the big thing for me was not only was it going to be for me, like the owner of the business, they said, yeah, bring one other team member too. And I was just like, oh my gosh, it was like the sun came out, because I'm like, this was exactly what we needed in order to like really, I think, properly sort of assess where Pro Organizer Studio was, the sort of the processes and systems that we did have in place, and then also really strengthening and creating systems for the things that we didn't have in place, that we were sort of like always reinventing the wheel, right?
Yeah.
So Brie, how would you summarize for somebody who doesn't know anything about the book Clockwork, like what really the premise is and like what it's about?
So I think whether you read the book or not, you know that creating efficiency in your business, it doesn't happen overnight. It's definitely a process. And so this book and this course really teach you how to evaluate your business and your time, like how you're spending your time in your business, and if that meets like the priorities that you have for the goals of your business, and how to kind of shift tasks or shift your time or shift your team members to fit better into the right roles and to use your time more efficiently for the health of your business.
Brie, why do you think that even someone who is a professional organizer who's listening, who is a solo business owner and doesn't have employees or assistants and doesn't necessarily plan on having any in the near future, like what would she get out of reading that book?
Anyone who's starting a business has goals, or hopefully you have some goals for where you want your business to be, 5 years from now, or even a year from now. But a lot of times what happens with entrepreneurs is that they try to do everything themselves, and it's like you're just running on a hamster wheel, and you're not really thinking about, even though you have goals or dreams for 5 years from now, you're not necessarily doing the work it takes to get there right now. And so I think that this book really helps you slow down and take the steps you need to put the systems in place so that you can get to that point, in a couple years down the road.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think too that there's definitely a happy medium somewhere for like the kind of person out there who they can run an organizing business all by themselves, but there's going to be certain things that they never are going to like quite get around to putting extra time toward. So I think even reading the book and kind of getting an understanding of like, okay, here are what my weekly and daily business tasks should be. And am I on track, and do I have ways to measure whether or not I'm doing those? And then I think too that it helps you identify areas where if you wanted to, or if you got to the point where you're financially able to outsource something to a social media manager, for example, like you just come to the point where you just say, this is important for my business, but I do not want to be the one who dedicates the time to it myself. And I use that example because it's such a good one. It's something that you can do the bare minimum, or you can do nothing, and then other people choose to put a lot into it, right?
Yeah. And one of the things that Adrienne said in the course, Adrienne Dorison co-wrote the book Clockwork with Mike Micalowicz, and she actually runs the course Run Like Clockwork. And one of the things that she said, to kind of get your mind in the right place is, what will you do when you have more clients than you can handle? Like, can you make your 1,000th customer feel like your first customer? Can you give them the same level of attention? So like when you've gotten to that point where you are successful, have you like outsourced the right things or put the right systems in place so that you can give them the same level of attention?
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk about what that might look like for a professional organizer. Because since, we're always saying like every person and project is so different that a lot of the time I know, especially new organizers feel like they are starting from square one with every single person, because you're learning a little something new with everybody. But I think that going through something like a book like Clockwork, or just, educating yourself on business processes in general, will start to open your eyes to the commonalities of, okay, there's always going to be an intake process. There's always going to be sort of a project planning part of the project, whether it's a small one or a huge one. There's always going to be the mid-project check-in, things that you can do. And then there's always going to be the project wrap-up. Like how can I make enough of those decisions in advance so that every time I have a new client, that I don't feel like I'm just starting from scratch and just flying by the seat of my pants? Because I think that's probably the number one thing that is contributing to anxiety with organizers, is, their first anxiety is just getting any clients. And then their second anxiety is like, oh my gosh, I have more than one client and I have to figure out how to fit it all in and how to, to have this amazing level of customer service. Now, all of that is a major chunk and component of the Inspired Organizer program. So if you want to learn more about that, you should definitely get on the waiting list for the Inspired Organizer program. But even now, what you can start to do is go ahead and audit, like, what are my basic processes? And don't just have them in your head, like have them written down as if you were going to teach them to someone else.
Yeah. It reminds me of, working with our clients. I mean, what are we doing with them? We are trying to help them simplify their lives, reduce anxiety, and automate systems. I mean, create systems in their house so that they can save time. So it makes sense that is something that we need to do in our own businesses, to automate things and create efficiency in our business, so that we can spend more time with our clients and focus on what they need. I mean, it makes sense. It just takes time.
So true. And I will tell you too, that going through like the actual, hands-on, we got some amazing coaching in the Clockwork program that we wouldn't have gotten just from reading the book. But going through the program, it really helped us see that a lot of the decisions, especially like when there's two of us, I was making a lot of decisions based on criteria that it lived in my head, right? So I, through the coaching of the program, and this is where I think we really benefited beyond just reading the book. Through the coaching in the program, I was really taught how to get things and decisions out of my head, like onto paper, because it was basically like they said, Adrienne said, the decision-making process already exists. It's just not in paper form. It's not in a checklist form. It's not in something that I can share with Brie so that Brie knows what the expectations are and all that. And so that was genuinely for me the biggest takeaway, is that it's not like you have to sit down and create all this new stuff in order to, create sort of an operations manual for your business. It was more just a matter of like documenting what was already happening. And I'll definitely be honest, it was uncomfortable at times for me to have to slow down and do the Clockwork homework. But it was actually really, it relieved so much stress on my part, because it helped me see that a lot of the anxiety that is in my head about, wanting things to be perfect and, guys, I'm just like you. Like, I don't ever want to make a mistake in my business. And so I hold on to a lot of things like, oh, I'll just be the one to do that. Rather than trusting Brie or trusting anyone to help, execute on those processes. I was holding on to a lot of that myself because I assumed that it was too complicated to teach to somebody else. And it turns out that I just had never taken the time before just to like sketch out, like, here's how I make this decision. One of the things they shared in Clockwork was like, one tool is you can kind of draw out a decision-making tree. If this, then this, like kind of like a flow chart or like a yes, no tree, so that now, even if you're the only one in your business, you kind of have your processes visually laid out in front of you, so that you don't feel like you have this huge decision weighing on you all on your own. You're just sort of like, hey, here's how I've done it before. It's fairly simple to do it again. And then if you ever do have an assistant in your business, then you have you have something to start from as far as, here are the standards and here are the things that I would like upheld, across client projects or branding, social media,
so much
all that
easier
stuff.
too for me. To be like, oh, if I get an email from a customer and it's something I haven't seen before, it's so easy to be like, oh, I just need to ask Jen for every single little thing.
That was our default before, right?
Yeah. But if she takes that step and like, writes down if this, then that for, general scenarios, then it really helps me to make those decisions on my own and with confidence and know that, she will trust what I do based on the guidelines that she's given me. So it's definitely been helpful. I agree.
Another big thing I want to share that I got out of it is one of the things that we were required to do that was also very painful for me to do was to slow down and like take the time to track what we were doing basically minute by minute, like every time we changed a task for 3 days. And that was very eye-opening, guys, because it helped me realize actually how much time I was spending, like, quote unquote working, when really what I was doing was sort of like jumping between tabs, not really making a decision on things, trying to figure out like how I felt about it. And, and that spins your wheels for a long time, because you're not really committing to just like, hey, I'm on this one task and I'm going to finish it and I'm going to make a decision by like 3:00 today, versus like you're not ever setting a constraint for yourself. So I know for me, because I'm definitely an idea person and I tend to get new ideas like just out of nowhere, that I have to set constraints for myself, or otherwise like the big portion of my day, I'll look back at my time tracking and be like, what? Well, I spent a lot of time thinking about something, but I didn't actually decide. And I definitely didn't get to the point where I could do it or delegate it, because I never set that constraint for myself. What did you think about time tracking, Brie?
I did it for 2 weeks, but that just shows the difference in our personalities. I'm not trying to say I overdid it on purpose, but it was very helpful for me, because it did help me to stay focused, and also just to see what I was spending my time doing. And it fits into the whole course. I mean, because first you're tracking the time, but then you're kind of evaluating it and seeing what fits in your role, what doesn't fit in your role, what is your role period, and how to spend your time better, or remove tasks that are unnecessary, or try to consolidate tasks that, if I'm going into Facebook for 5 minutes, going into email for 5 minutes, going into this other project, and then going back and forth. I mean, rather than just doing a chunk of time here and a chunk of time there. I mean, so there's definitely a lot to be gleaned from that process.
Yeah. Oh, I think if nothing else, just the fact that I had written down what I was doing, I was like, well, I don't want to switch the task again, because then I'm going to have to rewrite it. So even just like saying like, okay, I'm doing this, even if I thought it was only going to take me 15 minutes, that kept me from jumping around, which is huge, because I've been telling people for years now, right? Like, single tasking is the best way to get things done. But I am the queen of thinking that rule doesn't apply to me. So
Jen needs an accountability partner just like anybody else.
I do.
It was your spreadsheet accountability partner.
That's true. I'll take all the help I can get, for sure. Okay. So Brie, what else would you say have you gotten out of this? And feel free to be honest. It won't hurt my feelings. One of my goals was for us to continue to strengthen our working relationship. Did you see a positive change yet? Hopefully you've seen me be a little bit more calm, but overall, like, what would you say has been the biggest change for just your daily work and like how we interact and everything?
I just think, like, trust and communication is definitely growing. It's definitely a process, and clockworking our business is not, just because we finished the course doesn't mean we're done. Like, it could take another year. I mean, it could take, as long as we keep adding employees or whatever, it's going to keep taking time to implement it. But just so far, I mean, I feel like we communicate a lot better, especially in the exercise we did of just, writing out the company vision. I think for any employee, it's so important to hear that from the owner of the business. Like, what is the vision of the company? And what are your goals for growth? Because if we don't, as employees, or contractors or whatever, if we don't know what that is, then we might not have as much investment in it, or we might not be able to make decisions with as much confidence, not really knowing what your goal is, or what you want to get out of the company, or what you're trying to deliver to your audience. So that helped a lot too. But definitely, our communication has gotten a lot better. Things are a little more categorized, I guess. I think it's more efficient. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Well, and that's awesome. I mean, that's as it should be, of course. I think definitely you and I have gotten better at understanding each other's learning styles, which we are different. And this is interesting too, because there's a lot of businesses that are two girls running it together, or someone who actually is managing a team of employees or subcontractors. Like, I know that solopreneurs are not the only organizers listening to us. And it's interesting, I think, especially like if you are the owner of your business, like I am, Is that because I am an organized person and I have worked as a professional organizer, as has Brie, that you would assume like, okay, we're both organized, so we'll never have any friction because we'll always be on top of everything. Well, that's not true because, our communication and our learning styles are still different, right? And our processing.
We're on top of things in different ways.
Totally true. And we see priorities differently, which is totally fine.
Right.
But I think going through the Run Like Clockwork course, we got really clear actually really early in the program, like what are some things maybe that I was even expecting Brie to learn how to do that weren't really her strengths? And did it make a lot of sense, efficiency wise, for me to train her and have the expectation of her taking on certain job roles that were not truly her best skill set. Like we got pretty clear early on what Brie was so good at and was going to definitely continue to want to do for Pro Organizer Studio. Now, she and I, we're planning for the time when we have many more than just 2 employees. Now, we're not there yet, and that's not necessarily going to happen tomorrow, but I think, are preparing ourselves ahead of time for that inevitable growth so that when we have, like, say if I had 4 team members and I was just now trying to figure this all out,
yeah, oh my goodness,
learning Brie's personality, it would be
a lot more opinions.
Everybody. Yeah. So like, I think there's definitely something to be said, and this is true for organizing businesses as well, is to really hone in on what are my workflows, what are my systems and processes. Get those somewhat settled. They don't have to be perfect, but get those settled early in your business before you have so many clients calling that you go, oh my gosh, like I really need a process and I don't have one.
Yes, exactly. Do it now. I always say, I think I got this from Dave Ramsey, but he always says, pay now, play later.
Like, I like that.
Your business might be young, but you won't regret doing the work now.
So true. Okay, so the last thing I want to share from Clockwork, and again, I really could not recommend more that you guys go grab a copy of this book from Amazon. It is absolutely incredible. Is the idea of getting to the point where you can identify what the bottlenecks are in your organizing business. Now, here's what a bottleneck is. It means that maybe, for example, your capacity to serve more clients is there, but your ability, you don't have enough people calling in order to fill up your calendar. That would be a bottleneck where you're like, okay, I just don't have the number of leads. Another example of a bottleneck could be you actually are so booked every day that you're not like that is a bottleneck for you to be able to work more on your business versus you being the one who is doing everything and you're like totally burned out. That's actually a bad bottleneck to have, right? Because you can get so burned out. And if you're the one wearing all the hats, then when you have to take a week off, your whole business has to stop for a week. So goodness, that could be a whole nother podcast episode entirely. But just, taking some time to really almost, I'm a very visual person, guys. So if you were to almost like sketch out your business as it stands right now, like often, of course, when you're starting, your thing is, okay, your bottleneck is just, I haven't even put myself out there yet, so nobody knows about me. So the most important thing to do is just get the word out, whether that's with your website or, talking with people that you know already, asking former clients that you kind of worked with on the side casually just to let their friends know that now you're like, you're really launching a business and you would love to have them refer you. That can be, a way to move past that initial bottleneck. But here's an example, and Brie, you can chime in on this. Often people, I think, are freaking out about the wrong thing. So like if, for example, you're that person who hasn't even launched yet, but you're worried about not having processes and systems laid out for your entire business, that actually isn't the right thing for you to be stopping to figure out right this moment, because it only makes sense for you to like get a client or two first, to get some experience to base your systems and processes on, right?
Yes.
One other way to get around that, if you haven't started yet, is to join the Inspired Organizer course, because we lay out the business system essentially for you. Now, you still are going to customize it based on you and your style, and you'll have to tweak those processes and workflows and everything to fit you. But we teach you how to do project management for when you have multiple projects and that kind of thing. We give you the sales process. We give you all the nurturing and contact processes, that people are like, I'm just now starting, but I've got a question that's like miles down the road. So that's one thing that Inspired Organizer helps you do, is to just kind of settle in, know that you have the roadmap with the pieces to follow in order, so that you're not stressing out from square one about something that kind of needs to come later.
Yes. So it's like when you start your business, you're not just working with clients. And it's not just working, on everything to make it look perfect on the computer, on social media or whatever. It's kind of a balance. And I think that the course helps guide you through what that looks like to have a healthy business, to know when to launch based on what you have already done.
And then another example of kind of a bad place to focus on, I think, is, say you've gotten a couple clients already, but you're still obsessing over your website.
Yes.
And, my advice as your business coach is, if you're not planting seeds actively, if you're not marketing actively before you need it, then later on down the line, you're going to have this bottleneck where you're like, okay, I don't have any money coming in. And so all that time that I was spending on my website making tweaks that probably didn't make a huge difference, could have been spent towards, doing your daily marketing tasks and, getting your name out there, so that later on, hopefully, you've got a pipeline full of people who know about you, or past clients that you can reach back out to either have them sign on again or refer you to their friends, that kind of thing. So that would be another good example of something where I see, because of organizers, tend to have that perfectionistic and, personality with like a lot of anxiety, is that they find something to place their anxiety on that is not going to solve their bottleneck.
Right.
So if you take one thing away from this podcast today, that's kind of the concept that I would like you to really hear from us is, from this Clockwork book, that it's not just about, laying out perfect processes and obsessing over the processes. Like they're there in order to kind of free you up to not have to make so many like decisions every single time you have a new client, where you're just like, feel like you're starting from scratch. That is going to wear you down. It's going to take up all of your energy. But if you have like repeatable processes for everything that you do in your business, everything starts to get easier. And every time you have a new client, you can give her really more personal attention, because you're not freaking out about,
how do I do this
actually
again?
delivering the service.
Yeah, exactly.
You really like give her that luxurious attention that she deserves, right?
Yes.
Okay. So Brie, I would love for you to end this by telling everyone how your job is the best job ever.
It seriously is. I mean, for me, organizing is awesome. And I spent a while, in my own business, organizing with clients and working as a subcontractor for another organizer. But for me, like, it's about relationship. And whether you're working as an organizer or working for Jen Obermeyer, it's about relationships. And so I feel fulfilled in this job because, every day I get to connect with inspired organizers, and hear what they're going through or what their current victory is in their business, and encouraging them and giving them tips and guiding them. And for me, that means so much. Like, just being able to be a voice in someone's life as they're going through a very scary time, to just be encouraging. And what's made it even more fun and even more real for me is being able to connect with these women at our retreats. It is such a gift to be a part of that and to see how just women getting together can make such a difference in each other's lives, and just being able to huddle around each other and hear what everyone's going through, and just have these like intense affirmation sessions is amazing, both in the behind the scenes, getting it all prepared, and then also delivering it and being there for those women is awesome. I love it so much.
Well, Brie is amazing at that. Our retreats are not only about affirmation, but about super strategy and, really bringing your organizing business to the next level. So Brie, are you excited to take it to Las Vegas?
Yes, I've never been there. That's gonna be great.
Well, and if you guys are interested to get on our interest list for any future live events like like those retreats, which we, are planning to continue taking around the U.S. and maybe beyond, who knows, in 2020. We do have a waiting list sign up just so you can get notifications about it. If you go to proorganizerstudio.com/events. Well, Brie, this was awesome for you to come on and, bring you out from behind the scenes. I know it's not the easiest thing, but I really wanted everyone to really see that I do not do all this alone. Brie is a major part of everything that I am able to do through my business coaching, through this podcast, all of the free stuff that we have going on as well, the YouTube videos. Brie has a role in all of those things. So I hope you guys know, that while I'm not doing all this alone, that you're not expected to do it all alone in your business either. So that's why we are here to help support you. Please take advantage of everything that we have to offer in order to make your business run more like clockwork, run more smoothly, and help take the weight off of you, because nobody should wear all the hats. Even if you are a solo business owner and you have no plans of hiring your Brie yet, it's still worth investing time and knowledge into your business so that it, keeps your life as balanced as possible.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again, Brie.
Thank you so much. It's been awesome.
And you guys will see Brie around, of course. And also you can say hello to her inside our podcast group on Facebook. We do now have a free Facebook group just for podcast insiders so that you can chat about this episode, ask Brie even more questions, or get even more information about everything we talked about with Clockwork today. So Thanks again, Brie.
Awesome.
Talk to you guys soon.
Thank you for listening to the Pro Organizer Studio podcast. If you'd like to learn more about time-saving services and resources for professional organizers, visit www.proorganizerstudio.com. And if you'd like to get Jen's roadmap to success for launching and growing your professional organizing business, go straight to www.poroadmap.com.